taking shots at the enemy. I'm gonna make it to the top, leave a legacy. If I got something to say, you better let me speak. Turn it up a new degree, bitch, you ain't seen anything. I pop off with the new rock, electronic, blow the sonic roof up. I'm too honest when I take a few shots. They're too toxic, need to take the noose off. You cannot save me, 'cause I don't need saving. It's everything I've been chasing, all here for the taking. Don't wanna test your luck with me, I think I've had enough disease. I'm sick of all the bad thoughts, people who are half-nots. We're not as tough as.
Alright, there you saw me getting a little practice in with my Glock 42, which is my normal carry gun. Although sometimes I do carry a little tiny in an A22. But this is an exact replica of the Glock 42. I have the Streamlight on it because I carry one on my real gun. It works really well. It's exactamundo replica of a Glock 42. It is authorized by Glock, so it has the little Glock logo and everything on it there. It looks just like a Glock. It weighs as much as a Glock. It's exactly like a Glock. And you can get your practice in with that. Shoot it in your basement. Have all the fun that you want to have. You don't have to go to the range. You don't have to shoot real ammunition. Although there's no substitute for occasionally shooting with real ammo. But this is really handy to get your practice in and train things. This is Umarex Glock 42, made in Taiwan. It's an official replica 6mm airsoft gun. Fill it up with the propane tank and you shoot it. It's lots of fun. Prepper, I'm down here in the basement cleaning my son's AR-15. This is one that he built. He saved up the money, bought all the parts for it, and built this himself. This has the CMMG bolt in it for 22s. You know, you can put the little 22 magazine in there, and this is a 25 rounder, not a 30 rounder. And he's got the full size 5.56 magazine for it, and he has a bolt for the 5.56. He also has the bolt. Let me pull it out here to show you. He also has the bolt and the extra charging handle for the 22s. The CMMG bolt that'll fire the 22s, and the CMMG charging handle. It's a polymer one. You can use a regular charging handle, but they have a tendency to jam a little more with that. And it has the polymer lower. This is the FMK firearms lower. I got this. We got this on clearance at Palmetto State Armory, really cheap. It has a quote from Thomas Jefferson on it. This is the AR-1 Extreme, and it says, "The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of tyrants and patriots, or patriots and tyrants." Thomas Jefferson, and it has a little "Made in USA" flag and stuff on it there. He's got the Magpul MOE grip. They did not have an exactly matching color. You know, it's a little different brown, but he wanted the brown one, so he got that. It has a standard Anderson lower parts kit in it. It has a buffer tube from Palmetto State Armory, standard spring and buffer from Palmetto. The upper is from Palmetto. The optic is just a red dot sight that we got. It has the co-witnessing rear sight, and just has the mounted front sight. You know, 16-inch barrel. It's a nice little fun gun to shoot. it does shoot 5.56 fine, even though it's polymer, and it shoots 22s just fine. It seems to work. Now this one, when I was building it, the pin that goes in here to hold the buffer tube pin, the detent pin, it was too small, so I decided to drill it out a little bit, and I pushed too hard on the drill, and I have a permanent scar now where I drilled a hole with my finger because I was going like this and drilling it, and I drilled a hole in my finger. But I put some epoxy, some Harbor Freight epoxy in that hole and glued it up, and put this Magpul MOE over the top of it there, and it's held up just fine. It hasn't been a problem. So but you know, I just wasn't going to get another lower and pay another transfer fee if I could help it, so we didn't, and it's held up just fine. I have not staked the castle nut on this guy yet. I need to do that. But yeah, it's a fun little rifle to shoot. It's his first AR-15. You know, he sold a couple of other guns and saved his money, bought the parts over time. We bought a part here and a part there, and he built it, and he likes it. He likes to shoot it. So this will probably be a rifle that he'll have for the rest of his life. You know, it's a pretty light one, and it does the job real well. But so that's what I'm up to. But I wanted to talk a little bit about my stroke and my carnivore diet. I had a stroke, I don't know, about 3 weeks ago. Actually a little over 3 weeks ago, on Thursday, 3 weeks ago. And so I was just at work at, it's like 10 o'clock, 10:30 in the morning. I was at work, and I was walking to get a flash drive. So I was walking back up to my office from the shop, and I started getting real dizzy. And so I got to my car in the parking lot and stopped, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna smoke a cigarette and give it a minute. It'll, you know, I'm not know why I'm dizzy. I smoked a cigarette, the dizziness got worse. And I started getting nauseous. I started throwing up, and I thought, man, I'm gonna have to go to the hospital. And I thought, well, how am I gonna get to the hospital? I can't drive to the hospital because I'm too dizzy. And then I realized I couldn't even stand back up to walk inside. So I then tried to get on my cell phone to call my boss, and I realized that my vision was all messed up. I was seeing all double. I couldn't see to dial the phone. And I told Siri to call my boss, and she called my boss. I told him, like, you have to come outside of my car. I think you're gonna have to call the ambulance. I need to go to the hospital. And so he came out right away, and he called the ambulance. And they put me on the ambulance, and they said, we think you might be having a stroke. We're getting you to the hospital. And they just, like, I mean, they basically loaded me on the ambulance, hit the lights, and went. I mean, it wasn't very long. And they took me to the hospital, and got to the hospital. They did a CAT scan, and decided that it was probably a stroke, but it wasn't the bleeding kind of a stroke because there was no brain bleeds. But they have to do an MRI to see the damage after the stroke or something, but they can't tell right away. So they had this neurologist talk to me through this, like, automated machine. He had me do a bunch of things, and said I was probably having a stroke, and asked me if I wanted to take the clot buster. Told me there's a 6.5% chance that I'm gonna die if I take the clot buster. And I'm like, well, I don't want to die, you know. And he said, you know, you're probably having a stroke, but you're at the beginning of it. You know, it could get a lot worse. And if we give you this medicine, it might help stop the clot and stop the stroke in its tracks. And I kind of just thought I'd rather die than be an invalid, you know, than be completely paralyzed and unable to speak. So I'd rather take a chance on dying. So I said, okay. They had to work to get my blood pressure down to below 180, which they did in about 5 minutes. And they gave me the clot buster, and then it was like 8 hours in the ICU, not allowed to get up. they wanted me to pee in this plastic urinal thing, and I had to pee, but I couldn't pee in it. Like, my body was like, no, you're not peeing in bed. Just wasn't happening. So I couldn't use the potty because I wasn't allowed to get out of bed, and I couldn't pee, and I was like, oh, sucks. But I just held it for that 8 hours, and then when the 8 hours went by, I was like, you need to take me to the potty. So they got me a walker and let me walk over to the potty, and I went potty. It was so good. And then I just stayed in the ICU. I still had really bad nausea. They were having me on something called Regulin, something called Zofran, something Compazine, and I was still getting sick and nauseous. It would just like hit, like every hour or so it just hit, and I'd have this throwing up spell, this dry heaves because I hadn't eaten, and then I'd be fine, but that went away after a couple of days. I went off all the IV meds. I went on the pills for the blood pressure, and I was still seeing double, but I could still see. So like I started seeing okay close up, but looking at a TV or something far away, I was seeing double. So I just started watching TV with my fingers over one eye, so I couldn't see double. I couldn't sleep in the hospital, so I am a stomach sleeper. I have always been a stomach sleeper since I was a little kid. I cannot sleep when I lay on my back. And they have so many wires and crap on you that you can't turn over and lay on your stomach. So it was just 3-4 days with no sleep in the ICU. It sucked, but I lived. And then finally on Sunday they sent me home. I think because they knew I needed sleep. They were really concerned that I would not seek therapy or rehab or whatever, that I would just fall apart when I went back home. And I'm like, no, I'm going to take my medicine. I'm going to rehab. I want to get better. And they're like, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. And then I read that something like only 10% of people or something follow up with their rehabs after a stroke. And so they were worried about that. And I was like, I'm going to do that. And they didn't believe me. So the next day the doctor stopped it, because there's so many different doctors. I didn't know who was who that day before. I was still a little out of it. And I was kind of I was mad because I had been up for 3 days. But the next day I stopped in, and she said she was the neurologist, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry how I was yesterday. I was just grumpy because I hadn't slept, but I'm willing to stay. I'll stay in this hospital as long as you need me to stay, and I want to do this rehab, and I want to get better, blah blah blah. I gave them that, and then they were like, came back in early. They're like, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and send you home. And then they didn't recommend me to any rehab places. They were going to recommend me to a rehab place. They didn't. So I got I went to see my primary care doctor, my old primary care doctor. My last one dropped me, but this was my old one. And he called. He had heard from the hospital what happened, and so I went in and saw him, and taking the medicine and getting better. I don't really have to use a walker anymore. I can pretty much keep my balance. I just have to learn to turn very slowly. If I walk backwards, I have to keep my feet on the ground and kind of drag them. I can't lift them up when I'm walking backwards and not looking, or I get dizzy. I just have to take it slow. If things start spinning when I'm walking, I just have to stop for a second and be like, whoa, and just a few seconds. And what I do is I look down at my feet on the ground, and that seems to help. Driving the riding mower actually was fine. I thought I would have a really hard time with it. I was like, well, I'm just gonna try it and see. And I hopped on the mower and I started driving around, and it felt completely normal. I get off the mower to move something and I get all lightheaded when I start walking. But I sit down on that mower and I put it in drive and I can go. And I can even back up and drive backwards and I'm fine. If I walk backwards, I get dizzy and want to fall over. So I don't know why that is. But I did just fine driving the mower. So I don't know if that means I'll be able to drive a car or not. I know when I'm riding with somebody else, I get a little dizzy in the car still. So I might not be able to. My neurologist, I had an appointment with them. Of course, they want to put me on a statin. And I said, no, I don't want to be on a statin. And, you know, she's like most doctors. She doesn't understand why statins are bad or what good cholesterol and bad cholesterol really are. And the LDL isn't bad. Just the unhealthy LDL is bad, but the very large LDL is good. She didn't really seem to know that. And so, you know, I told her, like, I'm a carnivore. And, 127 is fine for my LDL. It was 117 when I took it a few months ago, but you took it after I had been up for 3 days in the hospital after having a stroke. When you're under a lot of stress, your LDL increases. I'm surprised it wasn't higher than 127. Like, 127 is fine. I'm not going on a statin. Well, that's what caused your stroke. I'm like, oh, well, why do you have me on Plavix then? Because you obviously think it was platelets in a blood clot. Well, it was. Then why was it a cholesterol clot? You know, I don't know. But, you know, I just said I'm not taking a statin. Somebody in my family is really sick from having taken statins, and I'm not going to take them. And she was okay with that. You know, I was like, I realized that you guys think that cholesterol is bad, the LDL is bad, but LDL is actually good, and it's the great supplier of cholesterol to the body. Every cell in my body is made from cholesterol, and 98% of the cells in my body make cholesterol. You know, and they use LDL to transport that cholesterol around. And my brain cells are made mostly from cholesterol, and my brain is sick and it needs to heal, so it needs cholesterol to do that. I had my stroke because my blood pressure was way high and I was a smoker, and my blood pressure has been high for decades, and I was severely diabetic at one time, you know, so that's why I had the stroke. Not, you know, eating right and doing carnivore only gets you so far, you know. I mean, you only heal so much. You've done so much damage to your body. So I'm not convinced that cholesterol has anything to do with it, you know. And in the hospital, the neurologist is telling me, like, oh, well, we show that you have stats, you know, our statistics show that you have a less chance of having a second stroke if you take a statin. I'm like, really? Like, what research study was that? Like, is there a research study somewhere where they took 10,000 people that had a stroke and gave 5,000 of them statin and 5,000 of them not a statin? Like, wait, where do you get that number? And she just didn't know what to say to that. I'm like, I don't think so, you know. So I'm fine with my LDL, especially since my triglycerides are really low and my HDL is good too. I'm fine with that. And you know, doctors just think statins are the greatest thing since sliced bread because they're told that by the statin companies that are making multiple trillions of dollars. Statins are the number one selling, most profitable, money-making drug they ever have made. Of course, they're gonna say they're good for you. Yeah, I've just been doing that. I've been doing reloading of ammunition. You know, I've reloaded about 10,000 rounds so far. Just going through that, and the fine motor skills were I was kind of wobbly, you know, and shaking when I was holding stuff. And now I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. the moving, reorganizing stuff, going up and down the basement steps. Now, I don't carry heavy stuff up and down the basement steps. Like, I canned some pork butt today, and I just bring a jar down with me every time I come down, and I'll, or a jar or two. And I don't carry heavy stuff because I'm trying to make sure I can keep my balance and stuff while I go up and down the steps, and I do fine. Just holding on to the rail and taking it one step at a time. So yeah, I'm fine with that. And I just have to slow down a little bit, and so far I'm doing okay. And I'm doing rehab and doing these stretches and exercises and different things. I am doing them, but honestly, I don't think the stretches and exercises are helping. What's helping is me challenging myself to do something, and then taking the time and figuring out how to do it, and then figuring out how to do it over again, and figuring out how to do it again, and do it again, and do it again. And then you get good at it. You become good at it. And then finding something else to do and doing that over and over and over again until you get good at it. It's almost like, when you were a kid and you used to walk, like there's a stone little wall, and you used to hop up on top of it and walk like, whoa, and what were you doing? You were learning how to balance, and it's kind of like you're doing that over again. It's like you're teaching your brain to do those things over again. As far as like numbness, I have this side of my face is a little bit numb. My eye is pretty numb. I have to be careful when I rub my eyes not to over rub this one, because I can't really feel in the eye very well. So yeah, you can rub it till it's really red. My nasal passage is a little numb, and my lips are a little numb down here. I can move my tongue okay, but my jaw strength isn't as good. Like if I go to open something with my teeth, I can't clamp down and open it like I could before. So there's that. And swallowing, I just can't swallow as big of a bite as I used to, so I have to take smaller bites and chew better, and that's fine. But that really hasn't been an issue. I have to pressure can my meat. I used to like to take things like this pork butt roast and slice it up and just fry it, and it'd be all chewy and gristly, and it was good. And I can't do that anymore, so now I pressure can it, and it's nice and soft and tender. That's just things I have to do. I'm fine with that though. Eating is not that big of a deal to me. I'm currently eating one meal a day, and I'm fine with that. I'm not hungry the rest of the day. I might get a little hungry and think about breakfast, but I'm just like, I'll wait. And it's not like, oh, I'm so hungry and I'm forcing myself not to eat. I'm just like, I can wait. I'm doing fine with that. I'm eating less now, but I'm doing less. I'm working hard at doing different tasks and learning every day, but physical labor, I'm not going for 10-mile walks. I'm not fixing cars at night and evenings and weekends. I'm not doing a job. So there is less physical activity. I think that's why I'm not as hungry as I used to be. But that's where I'm at. So yeah, I'm still eating carnivore, and I still think that that's a proper human diet, and that's going to help heal my body better than anything. I don't think it caused my stroke. That's just what I think. You might have a stroke and decide that you need to eat oatmeal or whatever. Do what you think is best. I'm doing what I think is best. I'm lucky that I didn't have a more serious stroke where I couldn't talk or I couldn't move or I was paralyzed. That would have been a nightmare. So I'm lucky that they caught it as early as they did. They gave me the clot buster. They stopped it. but it's still a challenge. It's still like, I just want to go back to being normal. I just want to go back to like the way things were. As far as the car repairs, I am not working on anybody's car. I've had several calls. Hey, can you program my computer? Can you do this? And I'm just like, I'm sorry, I had a stroke. I really can't. I just can't do it. And I just had to tell people no. And I actually like not working on people's cars. I mean, it was fun at first, but it was getting to be a job, you know. And I'm happy not working on people's cars. I don't know if I'm going to go back to working on people's cars, or if I'm just going to keep it as a little side hobby with a few little side customers and fix a few cars now and then. But I have canceled the insurance and shut the business down. So I might do some more of that. But the other thing is the amount of tools that you need to program different makes and models and troubleshoot things and fix keys, and it's staggering the amount of money you have to spend on tools and equipment. I honestly can make more money fixing computers. They're all standard. They based off of mostly my knowledge, not a bunch of specialized tools and equipment. There's a lot of tools and equipment that you have to lay out cash for. And I've laid out thousands and thousands of dollars in scan tools, J-boxes, picoscopes. And that's just a small fraction of what I would need if I was going to do all makes and models, you know. I don't know that I'm willing to do that, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. I may get to where I'm like, hey, I miss working on cars. I want to do it again. But right now, I don't miss that at all. I'm really glad. So that's all I got, folks. I will talk to you all later. This is Tom, your Frugal Prepper.